Welcome to The Curiosity Solution. I'm your host, Beverly Beal. Join us as we explore the science of curiosity, share stories of people who've used curiosity to improve their lives, and maybe inspire some aha moments along the way. Welcome, everybody, to The Curiosity Solution. This is Beverly Beal, the Intuitive Interiors, my company name. And today we get to talk to an innovative psychotherapist who is really, honestly, taking one of the more challenging aspects of women's lives and is helping mothers and daughters figure out how to coexist, as well as even mentally kind of thinking back to your relationship with your mom, whether she's here or not, so that you can do some healing around that and allow the fullest expression of femininity and all of that. I'm just not talking about the floofy stuff. I'm just talking about the female power, and that's such a key aspect right now. It's very much feminine power is very much up in the world right now, as it should be, in all the time, but especially right now. So, Erica, I am so excited that you're here with us and that we can have this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I look forward to this conversation around curiosity. So I'm actually curious what we're going to be talking about. Like my curiosity.
Again, it's for me, that's what makes life so enjoyable, is not knowing and then seeking out answers. So it's that's why I do this podcast.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, just why don't you fill us in just a little bit more, because I know I gave a little bit of a intro there, but I'd love to know more about your practice and kind of how you had been before you became the head counselor at Vita Nova Counseling.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. So my name's Erica Thomas. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and a certified mother-daughter coach. I am the founder and owner of Vita Nova Counseling, which is located out here in Liberty Hill, Texas, just outside of Austin. And so really, I think, I've always wanted to open up a private practice, and it really didn't come to me until about year or two when I decided I really wanted to focus on women. And not only just that specifically, but generational change for women. I think this is really an area, when I think back on it, I've really been doing this for just about my whole life. And, really starting to think about that around my teenage years, and really leaning into that when I went to college, and then leaning more into it as I went into adulthood, doing my own work and whatnot. But so yeah, I work with women. I work with teen girls. And I also work with mothers and daughters and helping them connect, repair those attachment wounds that they've had with each other. And so really my whole drive is creating generational change, and with women. So the way I do that is through these lanes. So yeah.
So are you doing like workshops for mothers and daughters, for the mother separately, for the daughter separately, or is this more pair work that you're focusing on?
So I don't do workshops. I have done, just some seminars here and there for professional development. But I mostly work with, when it comes to mothers and daughters, I work with them in pairs or sometimes individually, where either the mother or daughter are not around for different reasons. Either they have passed away or they just don't want to come to the table to work on the relationship, but the mother or the daughter need healing around that. So I do individual work with that as well.
Wow, that's such a powerful tool in order to repair that bond because I have a daughter and I like to think that we have a good relationship,
Mhm.
but I also know that there are always things that irritate us about each other. As you know, with my own mom who is now passed away.
Mhm.
Um, Tell me some of the what was the biggest inspiration for you to start this? You mentioned something about your teenage years.
Mhm.
What was going on there that
Yeah.
suddenly made it be like, I
Should
think
I
I need to focus on
That's
mom.
very curious, yes.
Hmm.
So, well, I think around my teenage years is really when I really felt my relationship with my mother started suffering. And,
Mm,
um, you know, and my mom has done so much work around her, just her own work in generational change. She had a really tough childhood, and coming into motherhood, she really wanted to create a different experience for her children. She ended up having two daughters. I'm the oldest, and I have a sister who's 3 years younger than me. And so she really did a lot of just a lot of intentional work on creating a different experience, including, not repeating some of those cycles of abuse that she
mm,
experienced. But, along the way, there was just some things that she didn't necessarily, she wasn't really aware of that was really causing hurt. And that was mostly around, it was mostly around really her unresolved childhood issues coming out, when I was a teenager and I was telling her, "Mom, this is the way you hurt me." And her inner child would come out and I would end up being the one taking care of her in
mm.
that moment, rather than her taking care of me in that moment and helping me address whatever was going wrong with me. So, and then on top of that, I was just working through some pretty significant mental health issues that just, happened for different reasons. But so that's kind of where it all started. So,
I think the one of the things that a lot of people get hung up on,
mhm,
maybe not hung up on, but uh, when we talk about breaking cycles or breaking patterns and breaking
mhm,
those generational pieces, I don't think people understand that not every part of a millennial long cycle can be broken by one person.
that's true.
And
True.
so the fact that your mom had actually done a lot of work prior to you
Mhm,
even being born
mhm,
is huge. But there's really only enough so much that one person can do. So kudos to you
I agree.
for continuing that cycle breaking. Now,
Oh,
what I'm curious about is, did your sister have the benefits of reaping the refinement that you cultivated in you and your mom's relationship? Did she
mhm.
reap those benefits, or did she find other little crevices to
Yeah, I think
wallow in?
so I think that my mom did learn through, the oldest is always the guinea pig. So, and as a mom now, I totally get it. You're going through all the firsts with your first child.
Mhm.
And so you're not going to do everything right. But she did get a different experience. But also, too, my sister was a completely different person than I was. As the oldest, I was this ultra responsible sort of, just person, very much into people pleasing. You know, Part of our Hispanic culture is, fostering the idea of just, you don't say anything, you keep the peace, and it's just not being able to really not really having the freedom or the encouragement to just use my voice in the way that I wanted to. And when I did, just it didn't work out. So, So yeah, so she had a whole different experience, but also too, my sister is a whole different person than I am, so she kind of dealt with it differently. So yeah,
I understand that. I'm the youngest of 8 children.
yeah.
Grew up in a big Catholic family. There's a 3.5 year gap between myself and my twin brothers, and
Mhm,
16 years between me and my oldest brother.
mhm,
So yeah, there was a lot of evolving that happened with my parents and how they parented,
mhm,
and it's been the topic of conversation many times as the jealousy that some of my siblings felt towards me because I had parents that actually eventually did go to a like a it was through the Catholic Church marriage encounter, which
mhm.
essentially was ministerial run, weekend therapy group, and they came back communicating so much better, which obviously helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
But it was always going to be interesting, and I know I certainly was a much different parent to my our oldest, our son versus our daughter.
Mhm.
That's interesting that you're talking about. So basically, am I hearing that your experience as a daughter going through your teenage years is what inspired you to go into psychotherapy?
It it's something that yes. So yes, the answer is yes. Just working through when I talk about mental health issues, I was just a very depressed teenager.
Mm,
And so and I've always wanted to help. I've always had that in me. I've always been a helper and wanting to help people. And so now the way that morphed into was I was going to be a doctor. And
mm,
I went through pre-med, got accepted into med school, then really kind of took a deep look after a summer internship where I was interning with the head of the OB-GYN department of the Baylor College of Medicine for the summer. And he comes in the morning when I was supposed to meet him, and he looks exhausted. And I said, "Doctor, are you okay?" He said, I'm just tired. I haven't seen my family in 3 days." And so, at that time, it just hit me differently because I thought, I don't know if I want that. I always knew and I envisioned myself wanting a family. Um, it's just something I felt was in the cards for me. And I'm thinking, will my children understand if their mom can't make a school play? Will they really understand that? And although, yes, they will understand mom is a doctor and helping people, ultimately they're going to think, mom wasn't there for me. So, and I don't know if it hit me just at the age I was at, but I really looked at this really differently. And again, I got really curious with myself. That's where I really started getting
mm,
curious with myself, as because it was I had spent just about 4 years dedicated to the getting into med school and the whole application process. And I mean, just the professors were, you know, helping me and, just helping me and with preparing me for med school. And then all of a sudden I have this almost like this existential crisis at 22 and thinking, what in the world? So I really had to get curious with myself and really, when I really, really listen to my inner voice, I realized that I've always wanted to help people, but the way I wanted to help people is through therapy. And med school, although partly it was for me, it was also part of making my parents proud. I wanted to make my parents proud. And so I think that's the first time that I really started taking ownership of myself. And I'm thinking, okay, I do want to make my parents proud, but this is my life.
yeah.
You know, I'm going to be living my own life. This is my life. I'm going to be living it. My parents aren't going to be living it. So I need to choose what's best for me. And
How did your parents handle that when you told them, I'm not going to do med school?
yeah, they were pleased. They were quite surprised. You know, they were confused.
Mm,
and, wondered what the heck is going on. And because I'd been so dedicated to this, and I picked the school because that school was great for pre-med, and uh, so it was all like since I was in high school, and so they were quite confused. But then at the same time, then they got a bit upset with me, and but I told them, I said, look, this is something that I really thought about and I feel really good about. I feel really at peace with. And after I had gone through my own, my own, kind of processing it through, and you know, what could they say?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, you're right.
Oh,
It's your life and it's your college debt.
yes, that's exactly right. That's
That is,
exactly right. So
yeah.
yeah, so it was I think that was probably one of the very first times I could really say that I really took the bull by its horns when it came and using my voice when it came to talking about my own life. And so that was a proud moment for me.
I imagine it probably in retrospect was a very proud moment for your parents too, because it's hard to step away from the parental fold or just the family fold, especially, I mean, like you said, you're in a Hispanic culture and family is so important.
Yes.
You never, I mean, I struggled a lot, not necessarily with career, but with my family, it was more about stepping away from Catholicism.
Mm,
And when I, officially made that decision that, okay, I am not going to continue down the same religious path as everyone else, and instead expand into a wider lens of
mhm.
spirituality. That honestly, to my mom's dying breath, she was unhappy about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
Mm,
one of these, uh, I think sometimes people get locked into a certain way of viewing the world, and when that worldview is challenged, then even if you want to relax it and expand into something else, the
mhm.
fear of losing everything else that you've built around that becomes just unpalatable. And I think what I'm seeing right now is a lot of political dogmatic belief, where the people who are trying to just come to a conclusion together
Mhm.
are finding themselves almost unwilling to branch out. Do
Mhm.
you find that
Mhm.
kind of paradigm also perhaps present in some of your mother-daughter relationships? Not necessarily politically, but
Mhm.
just that, no, this is who I am. I can't change.
Yes, I do. And I think it's, and actually I have had mother-daughter pairs that have had fundamental differences in politics that
Mm,
actually got in the way of their relationship.
mm,
Sadly. But yes, and I think it's um, where I almost think it's sometimes on both parties because they get up and they get into this realm of fighting to be right. And everybody, they're in the ring, they're fighting, and then everybody goes to their corner, not seeking to understand and not getting curious with each other. Instead, making assumptions of, well, this is what they want, so this is how I'm going to react, or I know you, so this is what I'm going to do. And, daughter or mother are like, no, you don't know me. That's not what I was going to do. So go ahead.
I was going to say, do you ever find any of your clients actually changing what they thought, what you kind of thought they were going to say, but they change it just to throw the other person off?
I have not had that yet. I have not, well, I haven't, and it's so, but,
The
that's
reason
a
why I
secret.
ask the
Yeah.
reason why I ask is because
Mhm.
I have had some friends in my life and even some family members, so many siblings, we got a lot of personalities, There literally have been times when I knew what they thought I was going to say, and I have changed it up just to mess with them, just to
Wow.
not necessarily to mess with them, but just to break them out of their assumptions so that they would get curious about, oh, wait, what did you just say?
Mhm. Mhm.
And kind of almost as an effort to make them see me
Yeah.
for, and the whole of me, because um, if anybody else has ever, if anybody else has come from a large family or comes from a group where, like even I think group of friends where they've known you since you were a certain age, in many ways you get locked into that particular time frame.
Mm.
Several of my siblings, they really, I mean, I think that the last time they spent much time around me before they really went off on their own, I was around between 10 and 12.
Mhm.
And so, and all
Yeah.
through it, even now, sometimes getting together in groups, I am most assuredly no longer 12 years old.
But to them, that you still are, right? And
Right.
they see you through that lens.
And
Mm.
how hard
Yeah.
has it been for
Yeah.
the moms in your groups to reacclimate and shift their own perspective about their daughters?
Yeah, and I think that so a big part of my work with mothers and daughters is getting them to hold each other's space and accepting each other's emotional reality. And what I mean by emotional reality is the idea of that we all have subjective experiences of situations. So, and that can be colored by life experiences, your values, past hurts, your childhood bringing just it colors how you see the world. And here you have a mother seeing things one way, and then you have the daughter who has gone on and has her own life experience, her adult daughter, and she has a different way of seeing things.
Mhm.
um, so it's getting them to really understand that they are both incredible individual women who are going to have individual views, and that's okay. And being able to respect that about each other and not have to convince each other who's right and who's wrong, because ultimately that's where they're going to both lose. So the idea
Mhm.
of saying, you know what, this is your decision. I don't understand it, but can you help me understand it? And it's not with the intention of convince me that you are right, or I'm going to convince you why I don't think you should, but it's just out of pure curiosity, help me understand it. And at the end, if you don't understand it, that's okay. And so that's where mothers and daughters really start feeling seen and heard by each other and really respected by each other of, okay, I'm going to have a different view, and that's okay. I know you're going to have a different view, and that's okay. I still love you. We're probably going to, push each other's buttons and get into arguments, but we now have a different way of communicating so that when that happens, it's not should, it's when, right? When that
Yeah.
happens, our connection is not going to blow up like it did before we got here. So it's really about getting rid of assumptions and learning how to exist in a different space of curiosity between mothers and daughters. And again, without any kind of MO of let me convince you why I'm right. It's just simply seeking to understand. You know?
And again, leaving the space for the other to have a completely different experience and a different viewpoint. That's
Mhm.
that's really truly when you're embodying curiosity. Um, I think for me, one of the sweetest things that my mom ever did um, was she came down to visit for, I think she was down for a week, and um, that was an unusual experience anyway, just because, uh, you know, granted, my dad had already passed, but so she didn't feel like she had to be at home all the time. But when she came, I had a feng shui class arranged to teach,
Mhm,
and it was like a 3-hour course because I was really going into a lot more detail than just the basic beginner stuff.
mhm,
And she came. She
mhm.
sat in on my class, and again, remember, I grew up very Catholic,
Yeah.
and now here I am talking about this esoteric Chinese philosophy.
Mm,
And, and I tried to talk to her about it before, but she got to see me in my element. She got to see
mhm,
me teaching these other people about how the Bagua map works, how the different energy centers of the home impact different aspects of a person's life, and what to do when clutter accumulates in those, and how you can use that as wait, that's part of this part of the Bagua map. What's going on in my life? Oh, so like for example,
mhm,
in the East, which is the sector that deals with family and ancestors, family of origin, it could be country of origin, traditions, legacy.
mhm,
Um, I noticed a pattern that in every house, every room in my house, well, not every room, but most of those, the east part of each of those rooms were where the clutter happened.
mhm.
And that to
It's
me indicated that I had a lot of unconscious and subconscious, um, not necessarily regret or denial, but just conflict, unresolved issues around how am I dealing with this separation between me and who I am now versus the expectations of who I should have been according to my parents. And once I realized that, the piles were a lot easier to address. So, you know,
so
that was
interesting.
something interesting.
Yeah, I learned something from you every time we talk. So
So, for our listeners and viewers here, Erica and I actually did a couple of workshops during the pandemic around using feng shui to understand how to anchor in the new way of being with the mother or the daughter, while Erica was addressing a lot of these same issues that she's already been talking about, because there's that inner world and the outer world that when they mesh, when they match up, um, that's when absolute magic happens. So we had so much fun
Mhm,
with that, and
mm.
kept thinking about doing another one, but it might be time to do one of those workshops,
We
maybe do
might have
something
to
in
revisit
person.
that. I will welcome that opportunity. That was a really fun class, and, so I remember the title of that presentation was, "Refining Our Doors." And,
Yes.
it was really about boundaries and how do we create our environment so that we can increase a sense of peace within us and a sense of healing. And it was within the realm of the mother daughter relationship. And
Mhm.
it was really fun how we intertwined, just mother daughter stuff. And then you ended up putting in your feng shui, which I thought was just, oh, it was just lovely. So we'll have to do it again.
We definitely should. The feng shui is getting the right feng shui in your house is going to help facilitate the opening of some of those doors that people have, really blocked themselves off to. But it does need that inner reframing. It does help strongly to have someone to, work through the nuts and bolts of the day to day discussions with those parental figures and with your children. The I do work with clients around past lives, the subconscious stuff, not necessarily inner child specifically, not the way that you do, but I find that a lot of times there's a link to really deep patterns. How often does that come up for you in your counseling practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a significant part of mother-daughter work. When I tell mothers and daughters about what coaching, mother-daughter coaching is, I first of all, I tell them this is going to be really hard work. So I do really, I do require or really strongly recommend, but no, I do require. Um, let's just own that. I do require for the mothers and daughters to have gone through some some inner work, done some inner work about unresolved pasts. And where I would strongly recommend is if for some reason, if there's some things that they work through and um, maybe stuff starts to come up again during mother-daughter work, I do recommend that they go do therapy concurrently, right, to address some of the inner child things coming up. But yes, as far as intergenerational work, that is really one of the crux of my of mother-daughter coaching. And I tell mothers and daughters when we're going into mother-daughter coaching is that not only are you working on your relationship and what's going on with you right now, but this work is actually much greater than you. It's about creating a legacy. You're going to create, through this work, you're going to create a shift, a paradigm shift in future generations of women in your family line. And really
Mhm.
too, and it's not just necessarily your family line, it's also other women that we come across and our friends, our coworkers, if you're a supervisor, your supervisees, and learning how our mother-daughter history, we carry it with us wherever we go, and it comes out wherever we go. And it also serves our own personal relationships as well, and how we navigate ourselves as women. So it's a so yes, the goal is to identify what those patterns are so that it stops with them.
Yeah, it's a
It-
it's a virtuous cycle
it
because with more and more women entering leadership roles in the business world,
Mhm.
um, we get the opportunity to interact in with a female authority figure. And if our relationship was antagonistic with our mom, that is going to then infiltrate the relationship that you have with your female boss. And
Absolutely.
that gets real
Yeah.
fun. I remember working for a family owned business, and the one sister was the owner. She had, I think, a cousin on staff. Her daughter was doing some of the artwork. And then she hired her recently unestranged sister to be the sales manager.
Gosh.
Whoa.
Oh,
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 hell. Again, it was one of those opportunities where I got to see what a truly dysfunctional family was like. I always thought mine was kind of way out there, but no, we were golden compared to this group. Um, but yeah, but you know what? That is what gave me the motivation to create Joy Water because
yes.
this is a blend of essential oils that neutralizes the energy of a space, purifies it, and then re-energizes it with joy. Because I was the fourth person in 6 months to sit in that cubicle, and woof,
Oh my gosh. Oh
talk
my
about a
gosh.
negative vortex.
Sorry, I have a
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, look, I keep staring at the trees behind you going, "You live in a tree house." I love it. I love it. What
Oh,
a beautiful place to be. So, because you're doing a lot of heavy work. I'm curious, how do you
mhm,
make sure that you're not taking too much on? How do you make sure that, like, I
mhm.
mean, for me, I've gotten to a point where it's not as bad as there have been times, but every now and then I'll be working with a client and doing some visualization work, and they'll say something that, like, oh, I have that pattern too, because I'm starting to feel, I can tell the difference when I'm feeling my client's emotions and when I'm feeling my own emotions. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, no, that's mine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and so I have my own techniques to kind of like take my own deep breath and back up. But how do you handle that when something comes up that's a little too close to home for you as
Mhm,
the therapist?
yeah. I think, well, first of all, I have my own therapist. So, uh, you know,
Smart.
Every therapist needs a therapist, and so should anything like that come up, that's my opportunity to process through it. Um, but just 20 years of being in therapy, one of the things that I've learned is just how to compartmentalize. And
Mm.
that's not a skill that you learn right off the bat. It's a skill that's just it takes time. It takes time. And so there's some deep breaths that I will do, in the session if I'm, just kind of like, ooh, I'll just take a deep breath, and then just remind myself it's important for you to be in the present. This is not yours right now. This is theirs. So just, kind of just speaking with myself in that session, remembering that what I have to bring up is not going to serve them well. And, my duty is not to do them harm. So it's really kind of getting myself in that state of let's be there for them in the best ways that's going to serve them best, and it's going to not cause harm. So but yeah, I do my therapy. I'm still learning the art of resting, and
What's that?
yeah, resting.
Resting?
What? Yes, the R word that Americans don't know very well.
I
And
know the other R word, rush. I know the
rush.
word I
Oh,
know the word
yes.
ratchet things up.
Yes. Yes, those are absolutely. Yeah. And so just really kind of the art of just resting. So if I'm tired, learning how to just honor my body and say, I'm just tired. I just need to just rest. Or go take walks after I'm done with sessions. If it's a particularly heavy one, I go outside and I go take a walk and just kind of bond with nature, take breaths of fresh air. And so, yeah. So, and not only that, but I do exercise, and I have a cocktail of supplements, but I do take care of my gut quite well. So,
Good, good.
mhm.
So speaking of your gut, do you think that's where you typically feel your curiosity, or is it another body part?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, it's my gut.
Okay.
Yes, it's my gut. Um, and, just learning how to, that's been something that's an area of growth for me. And learn that when I do lean into that intuition and I do lean into and get curious with that voice, um, that's where I do the most good. And that's where I feel like I'm most aligned with myself. And, um, again, I think sometimes we are we're acculturated to really think things through and to, you got to have, your column of whys and then why nots and, all these things. And sometimes the point of overthinking, which I know I'm guilty of, but um, just being able to also be able to trust my gut is extremely important thing. It's your inner voice. It's the strongest intuition that we have. This is how we survive, right? So it's learning
Mhm.
how to give, in over the years as I've worked on just giving myself that opportunity to use my voice, is also learning how to use my voice through my gut and giving that little inner voice a voice. And
Yeah.
amplifying it and being okay with that and trusting it, which is something that, uh, you know, um, sometimes it's hard.
It's really hard when your gut is telling you one thing, but the rest of society is telling you something completely different.
Exactly right.
And then determining, okay, am I having second thoughts about this
Mhm.
because it's not telling me the right thing, or because I'm afraid again, going back to humans want to we want to belong. That's why it's,
Mhm.
even as challenging as a parental relationship can be, there a lot of times it's like, no, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back. I know it's going to hurt, but I want to belong to this family so bad. I'm willing to suffer. Um, you know,
Yeah.
the your gut. So I have had a lot of issues, gut issues for so many years. Part of it stemmed from being a child with a lot of undiagnosed allergies,
Mm.
growing up on a farm with
Oh,
lots of dust and lots of alfalfa and lots of trees. And oh my goodness, the
yeah.
pollens. And
Mm,
so my I took a lot of antibiotics that I think really did not help my gut.
mm,
But that was also my little like notice of, hey, something isn't right here. I'm going to I'm going to cause you issues. And and so I think that is something that is very common, especially for women, because of, our seat of creation is that second chakra. It's the womb space. If it's not your gut that's causing you problems, it's your uterus or your ovaries. It's that whole lower abdominal area that likes to be the antenna for energy.
mhm.
And I know that it helped me tremendously just to stop being angry with it and to just start loving on it. And so it sounds like you're loving on your gut with your supplement cocktail. I think that's something I do as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is important. I think, so as women, we're not encouraged to use our voice. And I think we have such a strong intuition. We were given the gift of intuition. And sometimes when we're not encouraged to use our voice, to speak up, it just stays in there. It just stays.
Mhm.
And, and it just does things. And, for me, that's why it was really important for my daughter to have a voice and encourage her to have a voice. Hey, if you are, feeling something, speak up, tell me, right?
Right.
If you have an idea, an opinion, speak up. It's important. And and I don't care if it's different. It's important. And so this is something that, I know my mom worked through in her own way, and she tried to instill that in me. There were parts again that she uh, just didn't work through and was not cognizant of. I think it's about, generational patterns is that if you don't know, if you're not cognizant of, what's broken, then you can't fix it. And but
Yeah.
so she kind of taught me in my own way. My dad did a lot of that. He always said, just ask. The worst thing that they could tell you is no, and because I'd be like, oh, should I ask? He's like, just go ask, and so I always appreciated that, about my dad. And so yeah, so for me, I mean, all our children, I have two older sons, but I think particularly just because my daughter, she's a young woman now. She's 17, and I want her to go out in the world and be able to know she has a seat at the table with her voice and
Mhm.
her intuition. If her gut is telling her something, say it. And
You know, I just got this little phrase that popped into my head. Unspoken words are like undigested foods.
oh yeah,
They're not they aren't nourishing you, and nor are you able to be comfortable,
yeah,
because if we've have an yeah, and so yeah, using your voice is important, but I think for some, even allowing themselves to explore their areas of curiosity is being squashed. Did your parents reward your curiosity, or did they, how did they handle it when you were trying to explore different things? It sounds like, you were a pretty driven child, but
yeah.
still, how did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, it depended on the topic. you know so there were topics that I could get curious with them that were not necessarily threatening, but I think it came down to when there were just some things, and I think particularly my mom, where I was, just kind of, I was trying to use my voice, and it would go against me. And so for me, it was, you know what, I just better not say anything. And also I learned too. It's just also too by example, you just learn like, okay, just, just don't say anything, you're gonna, just get them upset or um,
Don't rock the
even
boat.
don't rock the boat or and you totally see something going on that's totally wrong and they're like, that's their stuff. Just let it be, and so and it's just like but but so not so just kind of like okay. So no, I feel that yeah, so so the sense of curiosity I think for me was just it just depended on the topic. If it was a topic about the world or whatever, it's good, you know. So yeah.
Well, I've already talked about how religion was a big point of contention in my childhood and beyond, and trying to understand. But I don't know, Mom. I don't. I'm so curious. Why can't women be priests? Why can't women be in leadership positions in the Catholic Church? And it was, but that's the way it's always been. It's like, but why?
Right.
That if I wanted to start, not necessarily World War III, but if I wanted to start a, little quite a skirmish, I would keep pushing on that topic. And you're right, I did learn eventually to just let it be, as long as I was living in under her roof, I just needed to acknowledge that that's the way that it was her world, and that when I left, I would have my own choice, just like you made the choice
Yeah.
to forego medical school to become this brilliant psychotherapist. Um, so, what other kind of things are you working on? Is there a project that you're just like right on the cusp of realizing, and how is curiosity fueling you moving and making that into a reality?
Yeah, I love that question. And yes, I'm moving into a project right now.
Ooh, do tell.
So to tell.
Do tell.
So yeah, one of the things that I've been getting really curious with, and it's interesting because since I opened up my own practice, it's been a journey of growth that and some of those areas I've been like putting off like later, or no, that doesn't exist. And for some reason, and just opening up my practice and just like all the growth that I've done with that has brought about some stuff. But one of the things that I have really leaned into is my curiosity. Why am I thinking this way? And not in a judgmental way, but it's just like, that's interesting. So just allowing myself to explore in that way. And one of the things that I have really discovered, and just getting curious and really just allowing the breadth of my knowledge and kind of the breadth of my career and kind of where I want to go moving forward too is that I love working with teen girls.
Mm,
I love working with teenagers, and there's such a misunderstood population in our society, and I especially love working with their parents and teaching them how to, just how to understand their teenager, how to communicate and stay connected with them during that time. So it's not just a time that they endure, like this is a phase that, oh, they're just going through a phase. We'll just, let's just wait another couple of years. They'll be okay. But just a phase that they can really, really enjoy with their daughters. And not only that, but also spur generational change in that way, where
yeah.
you can raise a daughter who has a voice and feels empowered. Um, Yet you still have to be a parent. You still have to provide a sense of containment and safety. Of course, that's really important. But teaching, just being able to provide that empowering environment for their daughters of, okay, she's, she is, looking at her as if, when she's yelling and screaming, right, and saying, I hate you, is not being okay with it necessarily, but looking at it of the girl has a voice. She wants to say something, right? And being able to get parents to get curious with their daughters in that way of, what are you trying to tell me? I sense you are trying to tell me something. You're angry about something. What are you trying to tell me? But also giving the parents the tools to make it feel safe for their teen daughters to open up and answer those questions to them, for them. And
I I
yeah,
love that. I love
yeah,
reframing that temper explosion as
yeah,
what is it? I'm not understanding. What are you really trying to tell me? What's underneath of that? Because a lot of times the only way that, especially teenagers, they only have a few, well, teenage boys too, girls too, but the on off button of anger. It is more safe for boys to express anger, but when a girl expresses anger, that's when I mean, that's for it to get to that point, because again,
mm,
girls typically have better verbal processing skills and
yes,
emotional processing skills. And so when the anger comes up, it's like, ooh, wow, what is going on here? Where are
mm,
the other threads that are tying in together to create this volcano? Uh,
absolutely. And it's giving them, it's also teaching just, teen girls how to use that voice constructively, because
yeah.
they have something to say and they're angry for a reason, right? It's just getting curious with them. And not only that, but just giving them that sense of safety of, okay, you're going to say something. It's going to be okay if you say it. Now, there could be, let's teach you how to say that so that you can go out in the world and you have a voice. People need to hear what you need to say, what you want to say. You
Mhm.
have an opinion. And, and but let's teach you how to use that voice so that people out there can hear your incredible perspective of things. And so
I
you
love that.
yeah, yeah. So that is one of the spaces that I'm really leaning into as well, as I work in, just on generational change. And I do believe too that, it's not just the mothers that are influenced, you know, with women, but men do too. The dads do too. And I think
'Cause they
too,
have their own mother wounds.
they have, yes, they do. But the thing is, with women, and this is what I tell parents, and the message I brought and the message I've been taught is that women learn how to be mothers and women from their mothers.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but women learn their self worth from their fathers.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and, and, I don't know how many fathers understand that. And, I know in the old school it was, fathers provide and this is what they do. And, but I would love more fathers to understand just how important they are to their daughters. What they say to them matters. The fact that they, just saying, you look beautiful, you look gorgeous, you're so smart. I just love the woman you're becoming. And, just speaking those words into them, creates that self worth. And mothers do teach him that too, but the father is just so impactful in this. So that's also my reason for not just leaning into like teaching mothers how to raise their teen daughters, but also the fathers, because they have just a super important role that I want all fathers to understand.
Yeah, and definitely tell fathers that they should never, ever, ever tell their 14-year-old daughter that, "Wow, you are built like a broodmare, Bev. You've got some big childbearing hips." True
Yeah, that
story.
probably would not be the most appropriate thing to say in lifting her self-esteem. Absolutely not.
No, especially not as you are walking along, with a couple of other friends from your high school class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That was not my father's finest parenting moment.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and that's, just I want
Again,
people to understand that that's important, right? These words are important.
and
And
it's important to also, that was one of the things that I had to kinda come to grips with, is that
yeah,
in that generation, that was a really big deal because modern medicine hadn't gotten to the point where delivering a baby safely was always guaranteed.
Right.
And so, if you're going to invest in a relationship, you want to make sure that that partner actually lives through the experiences. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
but
in one, one point in history, that would actually be a compliment, right? Right.
I know, but it certainly wasn't this at
But
this
but
point.
it wasn't but it was as it's especially as a teenager, it's such a, just especially in today and age where you just have the comparison going on that is just
Thank
welling
goodness.
up and
Thank goodness I did not grow up with Instagram or any of the other social media accounts.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we really have done our children a grave disservice um, by connecting on so many different levels. Sometimes you need that space to disconnect just so that you can remember who you are, not in comparison with everybody else. And I think as women, it is very dangerous as well for us older women to look at um, and try to compare ourselves to younger women. Um, and I I don't know. I think as long as we idolize youth and essentially take the daughters and put them on the pedestal and then diminish the wisdom that comes with age, the parent or the mother daughter relationship may feel more inverted. And that, yes, you want to learn from the younger generations, but getting the respect from the older generations. That's why I absolutely adore Julia Louis Dreyfus's podcast, Wiser Than Me. I
Mm.
love how she's elevating the voices of women in their 70s and 80s because the amount of wisdom that they have is absolutely glorious. And
Absolutely.
you
I am so sorry. What the heck?
just have clearly you are just super sweet and they just want to come and be with you.
I don't know. Hopefully, it doesn't mean anything negative in feng shui, the feng shui world that a fly is hanging around me.
I think you're probably just really enjoying the carbon dioxide that you're exhaling.
Maybe so. And you're right. I think that that is a lost art in gaining that appreciation for the voice of our elders, the voice of our ancestors. And you know, that said too, it's also how we communicate too, right? And
Yeah.
how we communicate that wisdom as well. But yes, I think there's something to be said to appreciate that and learning how to bridge that gap, right? That the generational gap, teaching both generations how to do that with each other, where there's just some things you're not going to understand about me, and that's okay, and that's with each other. But we have something to learn from each other because I
Mhm.
think too older generations, right, have a lot to learn from younger generations. I mean, I don't know, I count many a times that my teen clients and including my daughter and my sons have taught me, some great lessons and just some things that I'm just like, interesting.
Well,
Or
that's the joy of parenthood. We have the opportunity to go back and relive our childhood with them. Um, and then we also have the opportunity to work on our not just our inner child, but our inner teen as our children are there acting as a mirror for us. And the thing too that I really enjoy is, talking about the generations learning from each other. One of the most beautiful experiences I got to observe is the close relationship that my children had with my parents as well as my husband's mom.
Mm,
And
mm,
just seeing how they both just really meshed and integrated their life lessons, and wisdom was shared both ways. And I think that helped to ground our kids and to keep our respective parents young at heart, because that's, again, exploring curiosity. So, Erica, thank you so much. We are at our time here, but I really appreciate this wonderful conversation. I look forward to working together again.
Yes.
And if you had, I mean, do you have a way for people who are interested in working more with you and the mother-daughter relationship? Do you do all of your sessions over Zoom, or are you do you have an office up there in Liberty Hill?
I have an office up here in Liberty Hill, so I do offer in-person sessions. I do also offer virtual. I see mothers and daughters all across the world. So yes, so a lot of it is Zoom. But yes, you can reach me through my website at www.vitanovacounseling.com. Vita is Vita. Nova, Nova, counseling.com. You can also reach me at Erica@vitanovacounseling.com. Yes.
Excellent. Well, I will make sure that I have those contact pieces, links for you in the show notes. So anybody who's listening can just go right there and make sure you get a hold of Erica. And if anybody out there would like to get a free tutorial on how to use the Bagua map, how to find that in your own home, I'll have a link in the show notes as well so that people can see where the East Sector is in their home, just to kind of see, okay, well, is this a family issue that we're dealing with, or is there something else that, where's the clutter happening? And then we can, that can be the start of a beautiful integration.
It's awesome. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me on. I really
This was
appreciate it. It was a good
such a good time.
conversation.
Oh, and so needed. We all need to make sure that we are good with the ones that we love, because
Absolutely.
family is very important.
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
Thanks again, and look forward to the next show in a couple of weeks. Bye bye.
Thanks, Beverly.